Hey there guys, and welcome to today's video. So before we jump into our project for today, I wanted to just kind of give you a little devo, a little thought on kind of where it came from. If you want to skip directly to the project, just go to the time code right there. But we are in 1 Kings chapter 19, and we are discussing the idea of rest today. And so we are using the story of Elijah. And we are in 19, and it says, specifically we're using verse 5, where he says, "And he lay down and slept under a broom tree, and behold, an angel touched him and said to him, 'Arise and eat.'" And just to back that up a little bit for a little backstory, Elijah had just come off of the big experience of defeating the prophets of Baal. And then in the midst of all of this, the drought that he had prophesied finally came to an end. So it's been just a big few, we're not even sure how long, days, weeks, whatever it happens to be. And he had just gotten to the point where he, I think, was just like so many of us, was overloaded. And not only had he been through these huge experiences in, you know, the kind of recent history of his life, he had also at this point had just ticked off Jezebel, who basically just said this, and I'm going to read it in chapter 19, verse 2. Jezebel says to him through a messenger, says, "So may the gods do to me and more also if I do not take your life as the life of one of them by this time tomorrow." And then the verse 3 goes, "He was afraid, and he arose and ran for his life and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a broom tree. And he asked that he might die, saying, 'It's enough. Now, O God, O Lord, just take my life. I am no better than my fathers.'" I mean, that feels a little dramatic, but he's gone through so much, and now people are wanting to kill him and all this kind of stuff. And I love what God tells him. He doesn't say, "Well, let's fight back." He doesn't say, "Well, let's do this." He doesn't say, "We'll go to a different place, find a different person, do something different." He goes, "Take a nap. And then when you get up from that nap, go eat something." And so I think it's a comical way of saying it's okay to rest, that sometimes that's what we need in order to get through these hard things in our life. And so in today's project, I really was just in this idea of what's relaxing. For me, where I'm actually in a couple of days leaving on a little trip with my husband, just to spend some time away, have some downtime, disconnect a little bit from the other stuff in the world and responsibilities and adulting, and just spend some downtime just having some fun. But one of my favorite places to go is the beach. We're not going to the beach, but it is one of my favorite places. And so, because there's just something relaxing about the in and out of the waves. There's actually scientific research that say that there is something in our brain that finds calming of the repetitiveness of the waves coming in and out. And that's why so many people find the sound of waves and water so relaxing. So when I was coming up with this kind of idea for this project, that's kind of where the idea of the wave came from, is just this idea of where is your resting place? Maybe it's a corner of your house. Maybe it's not a place, but it's a time. Maybe your resting place is super early in the morning or super late at night when the rest of the world is kind of asleep, and you can kind of spend time with yourself and with God and doing whatever you need to do to feel rested. Maybe you need a snack during your rest time like Elijah did. And so that's kind of what the idea of this project was, is just the idea of finding what you find restful and knowing that it's okay, that it's biblical to take time to rest and have a snack. So let's get into today's project, and I'll see you guys in the studio. All right, guys, let's get started on today's project. I do want to make sure that I give a shout out to Createful Art with Ashley Keeger. She is actually the creator of this technique. I kind of tweaked it a little bit, but I definitely want to give credit where credit is due. I will leave a link to her video down below. So to create my background, I wanted to kind of give it a warmth and a storminess. So I've taken my bright blue, my white, and a little bit of that gold color, and just swiping it in kind of a crisscross pattern all over my my Bible page. I am in an interleaved Bible, so that of course means I have an entire empty page opposite of every page of scripture. And I wanted to keep it warm so that once I added the wave, that it would kind of pop more and the blues wouldn't just continue to kind of blend together. I will put down in the description all of the exact colors of paint I'm using. I am actually today using some Amsterdam acrylic from Royal Talons, getting a little bougie with the paint today. So I was gifted a collection of it, so I haven't really had a chance to use it a lot, so I thought this would be a fun time to try it. So I wanted to kind of give it a little bit of a gradient and make sure that it wasn't just kind of a flat bluish brownish background. So I'm adding in a little white, giving it some contrast with a little bit here and there of that goldish brown kind of color. And again, that brown is in there so that it kind of warms up the background of my project. And that way when I add the wave on top, it'll pop more because those colors will be more of a cool kind of blue. Now you're going to see here that I'm actually not even going to wait for my paint to dry, because I think it kind of adds to the ability to allow the colors to mix. And I'm going to go in with just a round brush and kind of lightly sketch out where I want my wave to go. And just kind of lightly sketch it in with the brightest blue that we're using. And I really like, oh yeah, I kind of dorked up and got some blue over there on the other page, but whatever, it's all good. And so you can see I'm keeping it very much on the tip because I really wanted what was our background to be able to pop and kind of act as those highlights, so that I don't have to really go back in and add those highlights later. Our background kind of acts like that. And the fact that my background is still wet helps with that as well. It gives some kind of natural blending. So you can see I'm keeping it very sketchy. Cleaning my brush off every now and then if I get a little too much paint, because I really want to stay up on the tip of that brush to keep those kind of parts and those lines kind of self-contained. Now I'm going in with our darker blue, and again doing the same thing, keeping up on the tip of that rounded brush and just adding those here and there. That's the fun of doing kind of more this abstract kind of wave painting, is it allows you to not get so trapped in the idea of it looking exactly like a wave. You can really kind of personalize it and add a little here and just keep adding and layering until you're happy. And you can see I've kind of kept it all at the bottom of my journaling page here, and just kind of following that curve and doing those sweeping motions in that kind of curved way really reiterates the motion of our wave instead of just doing short little lines. Try to keep those lines fluid. And you can see I'm actually not using water to clean my brush off. I just wiped it off a little bit. And then I've taken that dark blue and added a little bit of green, again just going one shade darker. And you know, if you've ever kind of seen the ocean, you know sometimes it's blue, sometimes it's a bluish green. And you can see, because I've allowed the background to poke through in a few places, that that contrast of that dark shadow is really making our wave pop and just really giving it a lot of just depth. Pretty fast too. I mean, I think now this is on double speed just for, you know, the fact that this video doesn't need to be crazy long, but I mean, I'm almost done and I think we're like 10 minutes in. So a fun way to add kind of that splashed water technique or feel, I guess, is with just a plain old toothbrush. So this is just some white paint, titanium white, and you can do the little flicky technique, or you can do the kind of pounce technique. I don't really know if those are the legit names, but that's what we're going to call them today. And it really starts to give that idea of the foam and the water. And so I'm just tapping it there and tapping it kind of where, like if you were seeing a wave, where would you see the water? You would see it at the crest at the top. You would see it where it ran into another wave. So that's kind of over on that left side. And if you want some, I guess, chunkier spray, for lack of a better word, you can also grab something like a palette knife and use that also to add to your waves. Now my blue is a little wet, so it's actually kind of nice to leave it wet because it allows for kind of a natural transition between your white and your blues without really having to think about it. It kind of naturally does it. And it took me 12 minutes. All right, guys, now that we set that aside for a little while and kind of allowed it to dry completely, you can also hit it with a heat gun if you need to speed it up. But I was working on multiple projects, so I just kind of set it aside for like 10 or 15 minutes. And so, like I always say, go in with a pencil if you're going to be handwriting anything and just get a rough idea. It doesn't have to be exact whenever you put the lettering in, but just make sure that you've given yourself enough room. I wanted the words to kind of arch over our wave. And so I'm going in, like I said, just with a pencil and kind of getting an idea of what I want it to say. Like I said in our intro, we are in 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 5, where Elijah is running for his life and he's telling God, I'm just done with it. Just take my life. I'm done. And God says, take a nap, eat a snack, and then we'll discuss this later. And so that is kind of what I was thinking. Here I am kind of testing out a couple of pens because I wasn't sure if I wanted to use like a chisel tip calligraphy or if I wanted to use like a thin point Sharpie or any of that kind of stuff. So I'm kind of playing with that idea of kind of how chunky and what style I want it to be. I am absolutely in love with this wave, and literally it was done in like 12 minutes. So I will definitely send you guys over to Createful Art with Ashley Keeger's video so you can see hers. She actually did hers on a canvas, and so I think you guys should go check her out and tell her I sent you so you can see hers. And so I decided for this to use actually a Delusions paint pen in the color of Black Marble. And I was kind of trying to decide, do I want to do a handwriting? Do I want to do a block format? So you can kind of see I'm deciding as I go. So I thought I would do just like this kind of my handwriting. And when I got to the end, I realized it wasn't super substantial. So you can see I'm just lightly doing that. I love these paint pens because they will write over all sorts of acrylic paint and watercolor and that kind of thing. And they're really dark and bold colors. Sometimes pens will write over, but you can't really see them super well. So I felt like that was a little plain and little thin, and I felt like it needed a little more girth, oomph, I don't really know what the correct word is. So I'm just going back in with my paint pen and just filling in here and there to kind of give some weight to some of those areas. Now, if you're someone that is great at that modern calligraphy kind of thing, you could probably do this way prettier and way faster. But for someone who needs to fake it like me, what I always recommend doing is write it out how you want it in the, I guess, handwriting or the cursive that you want, and then go back in and look at your lettering. And anywhere where there was a downward stroke, make that part a little thicker. Because if you've ever watched someone do modern calligraphy, the downward stroke is where they add more pressure to the pen, which allows it to have that little bit of extra thickness. So this is kind of my cheater way. It doesn't look exactly like it, but it does give it a little dimension and a little more playfulness, and just allows it to pop off the page a little bit more. I wanted to keep this project kind of minimalist since our idea was on restfulness. And so I didn't want it to be busy. I want it to be restful and peaceful, and the wave to kind of give you a little bit of that kind of feeling. So I didn't want it to be overwhelmed with stuff. I even, well, I had to add a little bit of scribblies, but that's just, you know, that's just who I am. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's devotion and today's project, and I hope it challenges you just to find a time and a place where you can find rest and maybe a snack. So thank you guys so much for joining me today, and I will see you guys next time on the Creative Life Studios.